Rick, good to see you. You ready for another one?
Yes, sir, Keith.
Okay, as with every morning over the last 8 years, I began my day with a morning ritual, which we call the practice. And if you haven't, if you don't know what the practice is, because we reference it all the time, what it means are just techniques or things that we do every single day that don't take much time that allow us to really practice mindfulness and really clean barriers to being conscious. And for us, it is reading one page of something that is going to be inspiring. In my case, the Mayo Clinic Guide to Stress-Free Living book. It involves some exercise, a gratitude practice, and then lastly, being accountable to others. And so for this particular morning, I read a passage out of the Mayo Clinic Guide to Stress-Free Living. I have the ebook, and on page 174, it gives a list of 5 regrets of the dying, people that are dying. So when they're at that point in life or at the end of life, they shared about what they regret. And one of the 5 stuck out to me. And what it was, it said, I wish I'd let myself be happier. And I just thought about that. I was like, wow, and I can relate to that before I start doing the practice. And I think about what the power of this particular regret is that it doesn't involve anyone else. It's not talking about I wish the world was a certain way or I've been born to a different situation or family or that I had, worked harder or hadn't squandered my youth or whatever. It doesn't, no, it is squarely put, the accountability and ownership is squarely put on the individual. And what that is again, I wish I let myself be happier. And I think about that going all the way back to childhood. And when I became an adult and I was past the point of, I guess, knowing better, that I carried all this resentment and hate toward for my stepfather for the childhood environment that I grew up in. And along the way, there were a lot of people that were telling me, Keith, let that go. And even long after I moved out of my stepfather's home at age 17, I was still carrying it with me. That was me for the next 20 plus years till until I went to Landmark in 2007. I was doing this to me, not someone else. I was doing this to me by carrying it with me because my stepfather's not physically there anymore. I'm carrying the psychological trauma. I'm doing this number on myself. And it was me not letting myself be happier. And I go, I see people when I was in the Marine Corps and I was stationed in Yuma for 4 years, because it was not where I wanted to be stationed in Tennessee. For the next 4 years, I did nothing but complain about Arizona, the heat, and living in Yuma. No one else did that. I did that. There was another cat who was the same age as I was. He explored all parts of Arizona, every mining town you can think of, back and forth to the Grand Canyon any chance he got. And he was in Mexico exploring there. And he got a 4-year bachelor's degree during the 4 years he was in the Marine Corps. I get out in 4 years. I got one semester of college, and it's an automotive class. And so, I mean, Rick, I didn't let myself be happier. I could have had a completely different experience. I see people get tied up about what their kids are wearing and doing and things like that, and or about their spouse. What are you doing? Your spouse isn't making you unhappy. You're doing that. And so I think about that, man. The practice has made it so this will not be a regret for me. It will not be something that I say that I wish I let myself be happier. So, Rick, I'm gonna pause for a second. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think I'd turn around the question a little bit. In other words, what would it take for me not to regret living more happily?
Yeah.
And I guess the way I would phrase it would be, okay, how about starting at this point, considering the future and thinking, what might my life look like if I were caring for myself properly? What would my life look like if I were caring for myself properly? And the first thing that pops out to me in that equation is stop suffering. And
Mm.
that's what the practice teaches. The practice teaches gratitude, detachment, understanding, physical prowess, physical health, well-being. Those are things that are non-negotiable. And those are things that underscore the caring process for self. We often think that we're sacrificing for other people by doing things that really don't help ourselves or that hurt ourselves. And we're not really sacrificing. I think a lot of times in my own case, when I've done that in the past, it's been because I want credit. I want to look good. I want someone to say, wow, what a great guy he is. Can you imagine? And it's nonsense. The real way to handle life is to always ask the question, what would my life look like if I were caring properly for myself? And I think that gives you a whole different list of things to do. And delaying gratification is at the top of the list as well. And making sure that you're speaking about things that are truthful to you and living a life that's authentic is the way through it. Those things will yield happiness. Chasing happiness doesn't work. Caring for yourself works.
Rick, I love that. I really do. Thank you. And when you talked about, that part about um caring for yourself in terms of taking care of yourself physically and not chasing, I guess, that includes pleasure,
Yeah.
and those things, you're so right. Like being responsible with my physical health, being responsible with my emotional health. And it's so easy to say, well, I should remove myself from the relationship, or I should remove myself from this toxic job environment. If there's something that's in those situations that is causing you some physical harm, absolutely. But things that I thought were toxic, looking back, I mean, obviously my childhood was a challenge, but beyond that, I had jobs where I'm like, this job isn't for me. No, that job was perfect for you because because you needed people to be a certain way for you to be okay.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? Like you blame them for you not being happier. No, you did that to you. And I could have had a completely different experience all along the way. And I think the one redeeming thing that I've done well was to take care of myself physically. But there are some other areas that required a lot more work. And one of the things that the simple commitment to give up judging others, that relieved a lot of suffering, as you mentioned before. The other thing that did it for me too is is not trying to improve everybody or everything, like scanning for what's wrong and what's missing, but practicing gratitude in the moment of what I have right now, what is occurring right now is enough. That would have changed everything for me too. And so those are things that I practice right now. And it's really helped me to live a life where, you know, I'm not in the way of me being happier, me experiencing more joy. Throughout the day, all I'm doing is I'm cleaning up my little side of the street by removing the barriers that my mind puts in the way of me having this consistent flow of being conscious. That's what I'm doing throughout the day. I'm pruning all day, Rick. I'm pruning. I'm weeding and pruning. And I'm not in somebody else's garden. I'm only in my garden and I'm pruning the whole time.
Yeah, I think you're a great example of that. And here's the thing that people don't realize, that the practice actually makes you more successful in terms of all the badges of success that we count on in society. But in addition, it gives you a sense of inner peace. And so if you're going to have this inner peace and be successful, you need to be smart, conscientious, and tough. And by living this way, that's very, very challenging. That's a very tough thing to do because we're always defaulting to judgment, always defaulting to blaming others, always defaulting to finding causes of things we don't like outside of ourselves. When you get into the habit of realizing that you're creating your own problems, then you develop this toughness. And that you get to the point, at least I'm trying to get to the point, I'm not there, but I'm trying to get to the point where I can truly say, I don't mind much what happens.
Yes.
Whatever shows up, I'm tough enough, I'm smart enough, I'm conscientious enough that I can handle it. But if you continue to, lean on other people for claiming other people are causing your issues, what happens is you end up avoiding toughness. You end up being weak, and that weakness hurts you. That weakness really creates an ambivalence and an emotional upset and a suffering that is enormous. So I agree with everything you said, Keith, but I think what you're underestimating yourself is that the practice has made you extremely conscientious and extremely
Yeah.
tough and resilient.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rick. I love you.
I love you, Keith. See you next time.
See you next time.